What are other ways that are effective in managing internal communications?
You know, I think, and I'll just go back to my Google example, which has fully informed how we've approached this at Twitter. And I remember talking with other companies when I was at Google about this, where people say, you know, we want to have the kind of culture that you guys have here, and where do we buy all those multicolored big bouncy balls? And they kind of think like there's a shortcut to getting you there. And what instead ends up happening is you have these conversations where you say, well, you know, the kinds of things that we do to engender this kind of open culture that people love, and where you get responses internally that say, part of the reason why I love working here is because of these things. Just for example, at Google, and we do this now at Twitter too, after the board meetings, the employees were given the same presentation that was given to the board, right? So, and we would, again, you have companies coming to us and saying, hey, where do we get all these balls? And we really want to have this multicolored palette and whatever. And we say, okay, why don't you start by doing some very bold, courageous, super transparent things? Oh, we could never do that. And until you can get to that point of pretty radical internal transparency, I think it's really challenging. So those types of things where you have you know, live forums like these town hall situations, I think are really effective. And then we have other things at Twitter, like we have an internal kind of moderator type of place where people can submit questions, and it's expected that the executives will answer them, right? It's not that this goes out into the void and people are asking these questions, but executives answer them, they take the time to write them, they take the time to post them. From an internal communication standpoint, we steer people back to these questions, and so it takes time. There's no shortcut to getting there. You need to put in the time, and people need to feel like their questions are valid, even if executives don't agree with them. But there are many channels, I think, that can be harnessed internally.
So, for example, so my function's actually, it's called employee experience. So it's really anything that these employees touch, new hire orientation, speakers that come in and speak at LinkedIn, the company party, all that stuff falls under, because we want everything to be really consistent and people to feel. So the company's #1 operating priority is talent. And so because of that, it adds this extra layer of pressure that every single thing we do has to reflect back to these people. This is how much we actually care about you. It's really time consuming. It's completely worth it though. So the press release was like the thing I was always focused on, you know, 10 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, we need an employee note. It's like completely the opposite now. It's like getting the people's feedback and making sure, it really has made a difference in the way that we certainly approach our employees and how they react back to the exec team.
On both your internal comms teams, do you guys have people that you hired from within the company, or are they experts that were in internal communications?
In our case, it's been both.
Mine have all come from the outside, except the employee experience people who specifically work on the events we've moved from other functions. Because that DNA is actually nice to bring from other groups, because I think they represent back, oh, in sales, this actually wouldn't work very well, so we have to try this. So that's been nice to have a bit of a mix.
The reason I ask is because at Facebook, the first person that ran internal and the second person were actually both people that came from the engineering organization and product organization that wanted to just change their job a bit. And so it really kind of kept the culture of what was, you know, the engineering culture that they were trying to create.